Today, I'm very excited to introduce my guest, Massimiliano Giuseppe Tripoli, aka Chef Max. He is joining us from Rome, where I met him this past summer at the In Rome Cooking School, where he's been teaching for the past 6 years. Max grew up in Rome and as a young boy learned to cook alongside his mother and grandmother. As a teenager, he began working in his family restaurant and then moved to the United States, where he worked as a chef for 3 years before returning to Italy. Chef Max has worked with some of the best chefs in Rome's finest hotels and restaurants. Currently, he works at In Rome Cooking School in addition to his other culinary endeavors. Today, Max is going to share with us how Italy's history influenced its cuisine, the current direction of Italian food culture, and he will share a simple risotto recipe that you won't want to miss. I'd like to start from the beginning to see where your love for food first started and then work our way from there to where you are today. So let's start with Little Chef Max. You told me something that I loved, that your first toys were kitchen tools. Tell me about that experience as a young child in the kitchen.
Buongiorno, everybody. Okay, well, yeah, let's say that I didn't have many choices because I was just born in a restaurant, among kitchen tools and chefs and waiters. My parents always been in the restaurant business here in Italy and also in America. I grew up always putting my hands on something, like I always wanted to do something, looking at the big guys cooking. I was like, yeah, one day I want to be there behind the stoves and cooking and saute things and do all that. And at the end, I achieved my goals. And I've been doing this basically since I was born so far. So I grew up doing this. I grew up working with different chefs, several chefs here in Italy and Rome. All the panorama of the also gourmet chefs here in Rome. I took a little bit of everything from everybody. And at the end, I developed my own style. I love the Italian traditional cuisine. I think it's the best, the most classic, the most interesting also, because there's so many recipes, local recipes. Wherever you go, you find something new. It's always discovering something new. Only here in Italy, town to town. You always find something new to learn, and you never stop learning. That's how it is.
That is true. That's true. And what we discussed last July was really fascinating about the history of food culture in Italy and how the different cultures over the years really influenced your cuisine. Can you share a bit about that with us today?
Right, you said right. Actually, Italy is in a very strategic position. It's between Europe, Africa, and Middle East. So through the years, we've been, especially Sicily, where I'm originally from, where my family is originally from, we've been through many dominations: the Spanish, the Arabs, the Greeks, even the Normans have been into Sicily, and everybody left us something. Definitely, the biggest print was left by the Arabs. Under the Arab domination, they brought the pistachios, and today we grow probably the best pistachios in the world, Pistachios di Bronte, right below the mountain Etna, the volcano Etna. Pistachio Bronte, they call it the green gold because it's very precious and very expensive, but the quality is like supreme. The almonds, the saffron, the first sugar, each area, according to the domination, they had developed its own cuisine. Here in Rome, for example, it's mostly based on the Romano cheese, the pecorino sheep milk cheese, the guanciale, which is a kind of pancetta, but it's not pancetta. I always say that to my customers. That is the pork cheek. And unfortunately, for what I've seen, it's kind of hard to find in America. But if you can find the real guanciale and make a carbonara, matriciana with that, will make the difference, believe it or not. Up in north, different story, more German, French influence. So they use more butter, for example, than olive oil. They have their masters in risotti because in the Milano suburb, there's a lot of the swamp where they grow the rice, Italian type of rice like Carnaroli, Arborio, many different kinds of rices up there. They're masters in risotto. In polenta, the cornmeal, the polenta with the gorgonzola, with the radicchio. It's all made, the traditional cuisine, it's all made with traditional and local ingredients. Just to give an example, Parmigiano cheese, which is the king of the cheeses today in Italy and probably in the world, was not as popular as today up until 30 years ago here in Rome or in Sicily. Only in the last 30, at the most 40 years, we start using Parmigiano in our recipes. So just to give you an idea how it is over here.
The Italians are so good at maintaining their food culture, their heritage through the generations by passing down their recipes through the different generations. So they're preserving their past and also helping the future. So tell me about, you were talking about how the fishing villages were passing along their recipes throughout history as well.
Absolutely. We are so proud of our culture and our cuisine. And we get really mad when we see like crazy things, stereotypes about the Italian cuisine and the rest of the world. But unfortunately, we understand that, not everybody can make authentic Italian food, especially when you don't have the main ingredients, the same ingredients. And also you have to, in other countries, we all have a different palate, like in America, for example, you guys want dips, you like sauces, you want to dip everything. So you have to make the Italian food according to the local palate. Let's put it that way. Yes, here there's factories, there's vineyards that they've been passing from generation to generation, and they carry on their family tradition. Same thing with the olive oil. Many restaurants are like that. They've been here. There's restaurants in Rome from the beginning of 1900, and they'll still cook the same dishes. An example is the Alfredo, Fettuccine Alfredo, no? The Alfredo restaurant, not too far from here in Piazza Navona, where I am at this moment. They've been cooking the same Fettuccine Alfredo since right after the World War. Alfredo, the word Alfredo doesn't exist in Italy. If you say Alfredo, they think you might call somebody. There's not such a thing like an Alfredo sauce. The Alfredo sauce is something that here we call burro e parmigiano. So it's basically butter and parmesan. The legend says that the first owner, the one that opened the restaurant, made this dish for his wife, which was pregnant. And she always had nausea all the time. So the only meal she can have without getting nausea was the fresh fettuccine, fresh pasta, which was very popular back then. All the restaurants, there were not many pre-packed products. Everything was homemade. And this guy was making these fettuccine Alfredo, and he had a little butter and parmesan and tossed this pasta to make the butter and the parmigiano melt together, make a white cream. So this guy was feeding his wife most of the times with this fettuccine Alfredo. What happened is that an actor or a journalist from America was here in Rome. He stopped at the restaurant. He saw this pregnant lady eating these fettuccine. And he was like, can I have the same pasta? So they served it to this guy, and he was amazed because it's actually very rich, very tasty. Parmigiano, whatever you put Parmigiano adds flavor to it. It's a kind of like umami. Today we talk a lot about the umami, Same thing for them. These ingredients are very umami. It's like the fifth flavor. Will give flavor to anything. So the guy fell in love for this pasta, but of course the owner didn't give him the recipe. So he saw the white cream. He figured that was cream, heavy cream. So when he went back to America, he tried to make the same thing. But of course, it was Italian, so you gotta have some garlic in it. So he added a little garlic in it, and then some black pepper. And then, but wait a minute, there's no protein in it, which is not true because the cheese and the butter already has a lot of protein. But let's put some grilled chicken in it. But there's no veggies in it. Let's put some broccoli, and that's how you ended up eating the fettuccine Alfredo American style as you have it today.
Okay, that makes sense. Taking what they think they know, looking at what ingredients we have here, I think maybe it's known as pasta bianca or something.
But that's not a recipe. That's something that we give to people where they don't feel really well, and it's something that you give to somebody that wants to eat something very light. It's not actually a real recipe. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Well, you've had experience working in the United States as well. So I'm sure you saw a lot of this in the restaurants, cooking Italian American food. And I'm sure that it must have been so different for you trying to cook that way.
It is. It was, but I'm not one of those picky chefs that throw things, slam things. I mean, you have to eat it. You eat it your way. I just tell you and teach you how to make it in the Italian way. Same thing like the cappuccino, no? Like we don't drink cappuccino. I'm sure whoever's been to Italy, they've seen that we don't drink cappuccino during the meal. We drink cappuccino in the morning. There's no such a thing like milk and coffee with a marinara sauce spaghetti. It's like, doesn't match really good, you know? But then again, you know, you eat it the way, but it's not the way it should be.
And that's what you're teaching at In Rome Cooking at the cooking school, where I've been, I think, 4 or 5 times over the last 2 years. I highly recommend the school. Of course, I met you, Chef Max, and other chefs. But can you tell us a little bit about the current direction of Italian cuisine? You said that had changed. It's going back to more basic, simple, traditional Italian cuisine, which you're cooking there as well.
Yes, well, back in the 80s and the 90s, we had a little influence from the French cuisine because the French are really good in merchandise and advertise their products, okay? So we had this influence from up there over the Alps, and we start using a lot of butter and cream as well. I'm talking about in the restaurants. At home, everybody was still cooking kind of traditional, but of course you had cream. They were using more cream. Today, for example, cream is almost forbidden. When you make something, you say, can we put a little cream in it? No, don't put cream in it. No, I don't like the stuff. So then what happened is that we start being proud of our cuisine, and we have such a huge background that we were like, why should we import recipes or ingredients from somewhere else? Our background, it's so delicious. We have so many recipes. Let's start focusing on our traditional cuisine. And that's how everything started. So at the beginning of 2000, more and more restaurants start serving traditional dishes. And they were focusing and studying and tried to get like very old recipes. Of course, at the same time, even the gourmet movement started. So then you had the trend, because in restaurants, it's all about trend, you know? It's like fashion. This year is very popular, this ingredient, for example. So, and they start serving like that. And we still carry on this trend. And I hope that we keep it for forever, because it's history. It's our identity. It's how we grew up with. And I really hope it's going to stay like this for a few more years.
It is so interesting because some of the most traditional and oldest foods, or like polenta, I mean, the things that have been in Italy the longest, you're turning back to that. It's the most basic, simple, and people have such a taste for that. I think I read where even carbonara was maybe created out of World War II, when there were only so many ingredients that one had at the time. And that's sort of the beauty of Italian cuisine, where they really emphasize just the fresh produce and less complicated and intricate preparations.
Yes, main ingredient here in Italy is quality. And actually in the last years, we've been really caring about local products, even the flour. When we cook, we try to get like a local mill flour, that type of wheat instead of, you know what I mean? Like very local, very traditional, and very natural. I don't want to say GMO is forbidden, but kind of like there's no GMOs. We eat very seasonal and very local, also to support the local economy, you know, all the local farmers and shepherds. So yes, we've been focusing on that a lot. Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how Italians prepare for a meal. You go to the market, and not the supermarket. What do you do, Chef Max?
Well, here in Italy, it's very popular to go to the market, like a local market, and buy whatever is in season. The way we cook here, the way we make our meals is like, okay, let's go to the market. Oh, look at these nice broccoli. These are the first broccoli of the season. So what we do, we just buy them. And then when we get home, we think about how to cook them. You can make pasta with it. You can make a frittata. You can just steam them. You can saute them. You can make it as a side dish. So we always start from that. When whatever is in season, whatever inspires us the most, we buy it, you know? And it's also nice to cook that way, because then you don't need cherries for the whole winter. So the first cherries, for example, I'll just say cherries, for example, the first cherries in March, April, it's like nice to have something after 6 months. You know what I mean? So it's also enjoyable, the fact that you don't eat the same product. First of all, because the quality, the taste is not the same. When you buy something that is not in season and it's probably coming from South Africa, South America, and they pick it when it's green, it will get ripe on the trip, but it's not going to taste the same. It's not going to be as good. So we like to cook it that way. We like to make our meals that way. Right now, you start to have the first cabbages, the first cauliflowers, the first pumpkins. We have our pumpkins here, our squashes here. And, it's nice to go to the market. Oh, look at that. We check the cut, where it's cut, if it's fresh and not too dry. We pop it a little bit. We touch a little bit to see if it's nice and hard and not mushy. Yeah, let's take it. Then I think about how to cook it. For now, let me take it. I like it. It's the first pumpkin of the season. Let's buy. And then we figure how to cook it. Yeah, that's how it is.
That's so much more. It makes so much sense. There's so many books about cooking seasonally, and it just makes sense because, like you said, with the cherries, you're ready after winter for something different. Just it changes everything up, and I think it's your mouth is ready to taste new flavors, and when everything's fresh, it just tastes so much better. So I would love to run through your risotto recipe. Before we go, I wanted to hear this risotto recipe. You can share with everyone the basis for risotto.
It's very simple. A risotto is the base. Of course, you can make risotto with anything. You can make it with butternut squash. You can make it with saffron, Milanese style, Milan style, especially with the ossobuco. That's the very traditional Milan recipe. First of all, you have to get the right rice, okay? You have to pick the right rice. Carnaroli is one of the most popular here in Italy because it has a short, thick grain, and it's very starchy. So it's very important that you get a starchy rice, because when you make the cream, the white cream in the risotto, you don't use any heavy cream at all. That cream has to come fully from the starch, okay? And it's different because when you put cream in it, even the aftertaste, you can feel your palate is kind of like greasy, no? When you make the risotto in the Italian way with just the starch, there's not much fat in it. What I do with the risotto, first thing you want to do is toast the rice. So you get a pot or a pan, you dump the rice in it, and low heat, and you toast the rice. Why you want to do that? Because in that way, you seal the grain of the rice, and when you cook it, it doesn't fall apart. Okay, so that will maintain the grain nice and at the same shape without falling apart, without dissolving. Okay, so you toast that and you put it on the side. Then you make a nice soffritto with onion. Don't let the onion get brown. Okay, you just want to caramelize a little bit, and then you throw the rice in it. Okay, you throw the rice in it. When it's nice and hot, boom, go with a glass or half glass of white wine, depends how much risotto you're making. And that is the base. You let the alcohol evaporate, you smell it. You can tell when the alcohol evaporated because it's not so acid. The smell is not so sour and acid anymore. Then you keep going with the veggie stock. I suggest you to make your own veggie stock. We're talking about an onion, a carrot, a little celery. You can put a garlic clove in it. You can put some parsley in it. And you have to pre-made the veggie stock, of course. And you keep adding a little bit at a time. For the saffron risotto, for example, you can just add the saffron almost at the end. If you want to make it with, zucchini and mint or radicchio and gorgonzola, I'm rather saute the veggies on the side and put it in. When you cook the veggies, better to cook the veggies on their own, so the flavor doesn't mix with other ingredients. You keep more the flavor of whatever you're cooking. At the very end, when the risotto is still nice al dente, because remember, you always want, even the risotto, not only the pasta, nice and al dente. No mushy things, okay? Not overcooked things. We're very picky about that. That's very important for us. Flame on, heat off. You add a little bit of butter, some Parmigiano, and you start tossing the risotto. The more you shake the pan, the more air you incorporate in it, and the creamier the risotto is going to be. And that's basically it. Nice and creamy, and I mean it's delicious. Risotto is delicious that way.
Thank you so much, Chef Max. It's so wonderful having you here today. I know you've got a class waiting for you, so we're going to let you go, but I really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again.
Grazie. I hope we're going to get more chances to share more recipes and more little secrets about the Italian cuisine with you guys.